When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Well, hello, everyone. This is Mark Ledlow with the Fearless Mindset Podcast, and we have another outstanding guest, one of our industry leaders that joined us with this busy schedule, and none other, Eddie Sorrells. Did I pronounce that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Got it right. Sometimes I chop up last names and people get upset with me. But I wanted to have Eddie on. He just took on the role as president of ASIS, and there's a lot to say about the security industry, and congratulations on that new role. That's not something you take lightly, I know.
Sure. Yeah. And Mark, first of all, thanks so much for the invite. I was looking at some of your past episodes, and I've listened to you before, and it's an honor to follow in the footsteps of some of the great guests you've had. So I know we've been trying to make this happen, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, you're welcome. Since COVID, we all got busier, and we're all like yourself. You've been traveling, jumping on the jets, and doing your thing for ASIS and representing your volunteerism and your servant leadership, and then you get your normal day job. So I don't know how guys like you actually pull it off.
Well, it's funny. I was on a call this morning and somebody asked me that, and my simple answer is I try not to think about it too much. If I really start to dwell on it, I'll start to ask myself that same question. But it goes by fast, and thankfully I've had some great mentors, Joe Oliveris last year, and certainly, past presidents and great volunteer leaders. So without their guidance and support and sort of showing me the way, I'm not sure I'd be as successful as I am right now.
Yeah. We all have mentors and coaches that have helped us save ourselves from falling. We do fall because you're learning the new roles and new responsibilities. So it's going to be a normal process in leadership, and it's I think we're harder on ourselves than we need to be. Yeah, because we strive for perfection and raise that standard of excellence.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to congratulate on that. Yeah. So tell the audience, what is a life as the president of ASIS in conjunction of running your other company that you do in Alabama? What's that dynamic look like? Yeah,
and really, like anything else, it's a difference day in and day out, depending on what's going on. But, first and foremost, it's a great honor to be able to hold this position, and one that I don't take lightly. But I also never want to lose the perspective that this is just one position. It's just one person, and it lasts for 12 months. So it comes and goes very quickly. And I really want to concentrate on the hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteer leaders throughout ASIS and our phenomenal headquarters staff that is out there day in and day out, doing the work of our association and trying to improve our industry, and to work with the global board of directors, the men and women that pour into that, week in, week out, and devote their time for nothing else because they want to see the association, the industry move forward. So to be quite frank, I look at what I do as a very, very small part of that. I was privileged just as we're taping this yesterday, I was in Atlanta and was able to spend some time with the headquarters staff getting ready for GSX. And I walked away from that going, what a phenomenal team we have. It's so much goes into that. So, but what I've done since the first part of the year is really going around, whether it's in different countries. I've been to Europe, I've been down to Latin America, visited a lot of chapters and organizations here in the States, and really talking about the message of transformation, how we as individuals have to transform. The industry is transforming for us. We can't really control that. And then thirdly, as an association, we have to transform. Just like the industry doesn't stay stagnant, our association can't stay stagnant either. We've stood up 5 regional boards around the world just in the past few years. So it's been a heavy lift. So we have to transform as well. But it's an honor, but all the credit goes to the incredible staff, the volunteer leaders that really just anything that I do, it's because they're making me look good.
the face of the organization for now, for your 12-month tour.
Yeah. And I've got a face for podcast, I've been told. So it's
Or is that the voice for podcast?
Yeah. The face. Yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, so you got your mic right there. It looks like a radio mic, and
Yeah.
you've got the studio in the background. Hey, it doesn't take much to do a podcast.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The beauty of digital communication.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think to myself how digital communication and podcasting has changed our industry. Like, there's hundreds of podcasts, and the next generation, the next gen, which is part of the as is function of selling into the younger generation and the new rules of leadership. They're the ones consuming this information, and it's free. It's like a free library, and it's pretty amazing to see. After I started, I saw Elijah Shaw with the Circuit Magazine podcast with Philo Moreau and those guys over there in Europe launch that. And then you have several other podcasters out there, shout out to Chuck Randolph and Chris Story for their podcast too. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it. My apologies, guys. But we all know what podcast that is. And then, of course, you got Byron Rogers got his podcast. And you just think of all the information to make the industry better. For me, I do that for the love of the industry. Of course, it's marketing as well, and it's cross-pollinating in the industry. And we all gain something out of it because someone's going to see something and get something out of it.
Sure.
And you got to play the long game in this world of conversation. And I think what I've seen in the industry, the next gen, is I think they're looking for more long-term relationships versus a transactional business deal.
Agree. Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're seeing out there too?
That's exactly what I'm seeing. And, we talk about where we are in our stage of careers. I've been doing this 35 years. And I've got a little simple quip that I use quite often when somebody says, "Hey, you've been doing this 35 years. My response is, but I've never done it today. And what I mean by that is even 35 years in, 40 years in, even 50 years in, you have to continuously learn. And I'm learning from that next generation. I was at a conference, shout out to the International Organization of Black Security Executives, had a great time with that group last week. And Dr. Ronald Martin, who has done a fantastic job in ASIS and recruiting student members, unplanned, but I was able to meet with some of ASIS's newest student members. And to your point, when I was coming up, I was just trying to glean a little nugget here and there because, to be quite frank, I was intimidated, if I'm being honest, about, well, I'm not going to ask this person for help. I'm not going to, I may say something stupid and people will realize who let this guy in the room. Well, the next generation, they cracked the code that I didn't crack years ago. They're not asking for help. They're asking for information. And when they talk to someone like me, you're exactly right. They're not just looking for a quick answer to a simplistic or complicated question. They're looking down the road. And being in Dallas at that conference I just mentioned, the questions that they were asking me were very challenging, not intentionally, but challenging for me, like, wow, this is very deep. Not just asking, to your point, something that's very transactional. If you do this, can I do that? Really, like, have you thought about this threat landscape? Have you thought about what's coming around? And I'm going, wow, these are, next gen in their 20s and 30s, and they're talking about things that I haven't even thought about yet. So what they're viewing, and to your point about content, they want content that matters. They want content that's not just going to help them in their career, but is actually going to shape the industry. And so the next generation, you're right. They figured out that this is about a relationship long term, and it's about improving the world and making the world safer and more secure, not just what they can get in the moment.
Wow. Yeah, I think it took me some time to understand that concept. Running a business, I probably understood that more so in the last couple of years after COVID. It's just, I think everybody was in a rush after COVID to unbury themselves in what they just went through and try to get some business crumbs, whatever. And I sense a sense of desperation for many in the industry, just trying to stay alive, trying to pay the bills. And I'm like, wait a minute. People can read right through you on your motivation of why you're talking to them.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's the old, cliche that, people want to know how much you care before they care how much you know. And again, that sounds cliche, but when we talk about pouring into the next generation, we have a very, I think, sacred responsibility. But one of the things I tell the next generation a lot is people like you and I, we want to be asked questions. And so it's almost the reverse. I don't want to walk in and say, everybody have a seat. Let me just, wow you with my wisdom. I'm not going to do that. But if someone walks up or reaches out and says, hey, can I get your thoughts on, the current state of private security or where this is going? Not only am I happy to do that, I feel like I've got an obligation to do that. So they've got things figured out that I wish I had figured out 35 years ago.
Yeah, and they understand technology so much better than I look at it. Like Riverside FM, this platform, I'm like, I had to give myself 2 hours of prep just to figure out what I'm doing. Oh, router's not working, so I gotta go Wi-Fi. Is Wi-Fi working? Okay, is that connected to the modem? I was like, where's my IT guy? Well, I am the IT guy. So maybe I'll YouTube it to figure it out. That's what they do.
Absolutely.
Everything's on YouTube.
Absolutely.
But you got to be able to laugh at we're aging out of the OG situation, and looks like you got some fight in you left. So do I, being a Marine. So it's like, I got some life. Let's get back to the industry.
Yeah. Hey, I'm 56 and, 60 is the new 30, right? So
it is.
Still got a ways to go.
Let's talk to the audience about your trajectory of your journey. Did you ever think you'd be in this position now and what you're doing, let's say 20 years ago, and you got in your career? What does your journey look like?
Yeah. And the short answer to your question is absolutely not. And I say often that, my journey in security is like a lot of security professionals that I bump into. It was accidental, but once we got committed to it, it became much more intentional. But 35 years ago, actually this month, I was a college student. My father was a prosecutor in a small town in Alabama, now a much bigger town in Alabama. And he reached out to the owner of a local security company and just said, hey, my son's looking for work. And next thing I know, I'm working a midnight shift at a manufacturing facility as an unarmed security officer. My goal was to go to law school and be a prosecutor like my dad. So it never entered my mind to make security as a profession. I mean, that was the furthest thing from my mind. And
humility.
Yeah. And again, it sounds cliche, but I really fell in love with it. And I was with a company, and I tell people all the time, I'm a unicorn and sort of proud of it. I'm still with the same company 35 years later.
Wow.
And it wasn't any grand plan that I had. I get asked by a lot of young professionals, how did you go from security officer to CEO? And they think I'm joking when I say, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But when I look back, I had a company that poured into me, that supported me, that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and gave me that ability to fall upward and make mistakes and learn. ASIS was a big part of that, the connections, the content, that camaraderie that comes with that, reaching out to people and being mentors. I went to law school back in the late 90s just because I wanted to scratch that itch a little bit, but also it's been invaluable for me in the security industry, obviously, that's fraught with legal liability. So, going from that position 35 years ago now to being the CEO of running the company, and I mean this sincerely, it gave me a perspective that job I had 35 years ago, what I do now is important, but that job was much more important than what I do now. That's the lifeblood of our industry, that the men and women that are on the front lines, whether that's in security and EP, cyber, you name it, that the people that are out there executing day in and day out, that are stopping things from happening that we don't hear about in the headlines, right? You don't turn on the news and the scrawl doesn't say security officer stopped something. It's usually when something goes wrong. So that's sort of how I got here. And I tell people a lot that I look back, and if I could do something different, I would really pause and celebrate each and every milestone more, because I thought there was some grander goal down the road. And now that I'm here, I know it was about the work to get here. It was about those steps. So, and here's the weird thing, Mark, is when I first started telling my story, I used to think that, man, what a story I've got. Again, I'm that unicorn and I'm so unique. I went from a security officer, and the more I told that story, the more people would walk up to me afterwards and go, I've got the same story. And so it was actually great for me to hear that like, hey, tell your story, get out there. And so it's not like, hey, look at me, I did great things. It's like, hey, it's possible. And this is the way that you can achieve that.
You also can do what I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's nothing tricky. Just
Yeah.
The doors open the way they do, and your personality opens up opportunities as hiring managers and supervisors see your potential. Working a night shift or at a residential security detail, trying to stay up at night, on your BlackBerry back then,
Yeah.
or on your phone reading a book. I'd be reading Snowball by Warren Buffett, trying to stay awake with my flashlight, then get up every 30 minutes and walk around and keep the blood pumping in my brain so I stay awake.
Yeah.
And, self-educating yourself while on detail, then have the detail leader walk by you and pull in and say, hey, how you doing? It just, every day is an interview.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great way to put it. And I boil down, what I did to one simple phrase that my dad told me years ago. Yeah. He said, just do the best job with the one that you got, and everything else will take care of itself.
It does.
I've seen that repeatedly. The people that have been in my shoes that we look at and say, hey, come upwards. Those are the ones that did the best job with the one that they've got. In 35 years, I've never said to myself or my team, this person did an awful job at this level. Let's promote them and see how good they do here. Mm-hmm. It's always, getting that initial role and those successive roles right.
Right. What are your clients demanding with your firm? What are the needs that they need? What are the things that they need? And where's customer service failing? Where are we failing at providing services to those clients? What are you hearing in the marketplace?
Great question. And it's one that I spend a lot of time examining and trying to answer on a daily basis. And I think it's two things. We are evolving. It's no longer guards, gates, and guns anymore. When I started, that was pretty much it. When I tell my story, I talk about the extent of my briefing and training pretty much was make sure nobody goes in that gate and call somebody if they do. Well, our customers, the people out there that are looking to vendors, are not looking for a provider. They're looking for a partner and someone that can be a risk partner and really evolve as the threats to their organization evolve. So what I'm seeing is, people use terms like one-stop shop and all those kind of things. The way I look at it is we're a risk partner and we want to go on that journey with you. If it's security related, we want to be able to guide you or at least help you execute the vision that you already have. That entails currently, obviously, personnel. You still have the men and women that are doing great jobs out there, but now technology. And in the last 2 to 3 years, executive protection, intel, travel risk, all manner of consulting. So it's gone from just give me a security officer on the post to now giving me a tech-enabled hybrid solution. And also I need that consulting piece, that EP piece, that risk management. So the evolution has been really rapid just over the last 2 or 3 years. So people in my space are having to adapt. And it's funny, it comes full circle. It's going back to those connections we make through this industry. And just take executive protection, for example, when the seminal event that sort of sparked the latest uptick with United Healthcare, I began to get calls. Well, spoiler alert here for your audience, I'm not an executive protection expert. I know enough to get us all in trouble. So when I started getting those calls, the first thing I did is reach out to people that are experts in that field. But they were coming to our company for that expertise. I'm not going to say, hey, we don't do that. Google somebody else. Hey, I know some people that can, and we'll partner up and have a great program. And just this morning, I was on calls about setting up a pretty extensive executive protection program for a high profile client because we've built those partnerships. So customers are looking for a holistic solution, and they don't want to be just, hey, you can only do one. They want to see someone that can come to the table and be a total risk partner.
That's a great way to explain it.
Yeah.
But I think everybody kind of, if they say in Hollywood, I did some background work when I was in Hollywood working as the executive protection agent, and they call it typecasting. And so I think a lot of agents out there that used to be agents typecast themselves. Oh, I can only do AEP work or executive protection work for family offices or corporate entities and enterprise organizations. You really don't want to do that. You, like you said, you want to be a risk advisor, enterprise risk advisor expert. Become that one, a partner. And I think that's well said, because I think everybody puts a mental block in their minds on, oh, I can only do X. Are you sure? You can do many more things.
Yeah. And you raise a good point too, that, even about executive protection, of course I knew of it and I'd done a little bit of it over the years.
Sure.
But one of the great educations that I got was when things started ramping up the last year or so, was executive protection is much more than what I call sunglasses and earpieces. That's really that was my stereotype of, like, when somebody calls and says they need an executive protection program, my mind immediately goes to EP agents. I wasn't considering travel risk, intel services, social media scrubbing, all these different things that we have a lot of end users that use the things I just mentioned, but never use EP agents because that works for them. So having that, and, ASIS having the executive protection standard, there's the content you have to glean. There's ways to do that. So yeah, it's certainly changing. And then the second part of your question, I think, is extraordinarily important too, and that's the service aspect. Everything that I just said, I believe in 1,000%. And that's the way the industry is going. However, all that's irrelevant if you forget good old fashioned customer relations and customer service.
100%.
You have to make sure that you're responding to the needs. And, one of the things that my mentor and the person that hired me 35 years ago that I still work with today says a lot, that, hey, all this stuff is important. But when people call me to compliment one of our employees, it's usually not, Bob Smith is just great at executive protection. He's the best intel analyst. He's the best SOC operator. Usually it's like, he's a great person. He picks up the phone when I call him. He's always polite and friendly to my staff. He never gets rattled. So all that doesn't really matter if somebody calls you and nobody picks up the phone.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
And I think corporations have lost sight of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
We get called from many clients, hey, we're using XYZ company, and we just want somebody we can call and say, hey, that's it, or somebody we can text. That's all. I don't want to call a trunk line. And so that's our business really thrived since that Brian Thompson situation went down, and the referrals are just magical. I mean, we had 80% of our growth was word of mouth referrals this last year.
Yeah.
And it's just, the biggest complaint is customer service. They just want to feel important. Can you make that client feel important?
That's it. And Mark, the journey of our company, I get asked that a lot because we started, in Dothan, Alabama, literally out of the trunk of the local sheriff's car. And now his son and his grandsons are involved in the business. And people ask, how did you go from there to having offices from New York to LA? And I always joke that I've got to come up with a better answer. I've got to have charts and graphs and everything. But here's the simple answer. The simple answer is, over the years, customers said, hey, you guys really did a great job here. Can you go over here? Sure. And to your point, it wasn't some grand marketing campaign, or customers just said, hey, we're tired of not getting good service. You guys are giving good service, so let's go on a journey together.
Master that one client that you already have and grow that.
Yep.
And I see a lot of people throwing mud out there, AI marketing out there on social media stuff. I'm like, that ain't going to stick. It's just, most of our business is clients that use us. Hey, we have a partner over here. They said they needed some help. Can you guys help them?
Yeah.
You know, it's that simple. You just
Yeah.
do a good job for people like you, and it's not that complicated. But I think in our brains we complicate things because we have so much information coming at us, and so our brain goes in I don't know, paralysis or something, new information, and we're like, oh, and it's the answer is simple. It's just you got too much going on in your day, and people just want to feel important.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes our brain tells us it can't be this simple. You know, it's and I know sometimes we all deal with problems every day in leadership and business, and sometimes it's a very simple answer to a question, and I almost find myself going, I got to make it sound more complicated. That was just, but sometimes the simple answer is, hey, call him back and see what's going on, or just do this and do that. So we overcomplicate things.
Yeah, you mentioned something about too, which I found fascinating. I've seen it all over LinkedIn with some of your chair committee guys, like Kevin down in South America, and Caleb Gilbert heading that up with Joe LaSource and many others. Mm-hmm. Your exec protection, you guys are doing a committee and doing some wild things. The first of the year, I saw the explosion of information going across my LinkedIn thing. I'm like, holy cow, what's happening here? So it sounds like you guys are trying to make the industry better in exec protection.
Yeah, ASIS has a lot of different subject area communities, and executive protection, of course, is one of those, and that community has done a great job. I was actually with Caleb and Debbie Maples over at a conference just a couple of weeks ago watching them speak, and people like that have done an excellent job, like I mentioned before, for people like me that'll say, well, let me tell you really how to deal with this. It's not just about the sunglasses and the earpieces. It's much deeper than that. So that community for ASIS has done a phenomenal job, not just publishing the standard that, gives the best practices out there for developing that EP program, but also really talking about what is needed and the evolving nature of those threats, because EP is like any other security discipline. It's evolving, and it's a day in and day out struggle to get it right. Again, it sounds cliche once again that right. We just have to fail one time for something bad to happen. So, yeah, that community and a lot of other communities also have done a great job, not just getting content out there, but being available to guide that discussion.
Now, what's the idea and the mission behind the committee of exec protection with ASIS or ASIS and all that? What's the end goal? Just to have, like you said, best practices with different organization, enterprise. Here's how you're supposed to do this, check the box kind of thing.
Yeah, and the same mission of every other subject area community, really to be the ongoing voice, so to speak, within ASIS for that subject matter. And again, really charting what is evolving, what is needed, the best practices. And executive protection is like every other discipline. It's very situational. You can't paint with a broad brush and just say, hey, one size fits all. So having content, webinars, but also those connections. I talked earlier about the message of transformation. And in ASIS, we sort of coalesce around what we call the 4 C's. That's credibility, community, content, and those connections. And so we look at those, and to break it down, connections, it's picking up the phone and be able to call a Caleb Gilbert and saying, hey, what can we do here? Or, to your point earlier, I need a partner in this area. That content, are there webinars I can go watch to help educate me on the basics of executive protection or intel or cyber or whatever the case may be, being part of that community. Going into forming that alliance. And I tell people all the time, it's nothing that I've done great, but through ASIS, I can pick up the phone now and talk to people around the world because I'm part of that community. Mm-hmm. And then also having that credibility to say that, this is under the ASIS umbrella. It's not something that I came up with. It is that best practice. It's coming from subject matter experts. So the end game for that community is really just like it is for everyone, to really help us stay relevant within that subject matter.
And it's always changing. It's always evolving.
Yeah.
It's never
Yeah.
the same. But technology changes the risks and threats and different perps out there, and it's just kind of wild how it evolves. I mean, we just got through COVID. That pretty much shut down the whole industry for a couple of years. Nothing was going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Now we're coming out of COVID, and it's a different animal.